A man does not fall because the mountain is high. He falls because he ties himself to weak minds at the base. I have lived long enough to see strong men crumble under the weight of small company. I have watched promising souls, born with talent and vision, become prisoners of the timid, the jealous, and the idle. They did not fail because they lacked strength. They failed because they allowed the weakness of others to infect their faith. Weak minds do not shout. They whisper, they sow doubt in silence. They disguise themselves as friends who mean well. They speak in the tones of caution, of false humility, of endless hesitation. They will tell you to be reasonable, to wait, to not reach so high. And if you listen, you will soon find your will diluted, your fire cooled, and your purpose blurred. Understand this clearly. The influence of a weak mind is more dangerous than open hostility. An enemy will force you to sharpen your defenses. But a weak companion will soften your discipline. He will smile while he drains your courage. He will applaud your dreams while secretly excusing your inaction. I speak to you tonight not as a lecturer, but as a man who has seen too many dreams buried in polite company. There are forces in this world that feed on energy, on thought, on emotion, and nothing spreads faster than weakness disguised as wisdom. If you would rise, if you would build, if you would create a life of strength and wealth and mastery, you must guard your mind as you would a fortress. Every thought that enters, every word you allow, every association you entertain, these are the sentinels of your destiny. I have studied the great builders of our age, men like Edison, Carnegie, and Ford. Their power did not begin in machinery or money. It began in association. Each of them surrounded himself with men of vision, men of courage, men who refused to flinch before difficulty. They stayed away from the small, the complaining, the uncertain, and because they guarded their minds became instruments of power. You and I are not so different. The same laws that built their empires still govern your life today. The difference lies only in what you allow near your thoughts. You cannot plant oak seeds in poisoned soil and expect strength to grow. Likewise, you cannot build a powerful destiny while surrounded by weak minds. So tonight, as I speak, I want you to remember this. Every influence is either building you or breaking you. There is no neutral company in the workshop of the mind. If you would be free, truly free, begin here. Detach from the voices that diminish you. Stand apart from the timid, and surround yourself with those who lift, not lower, your aim. Say to yourself now, quietly but with conviction, I choose strength. I release the influence of weak minds. Let that thought take root, for from this very decision your ascent begins. Weakness, my friend, is not born in the body. It is cultivated in the mind. It is not a single moment of fear or hesitation. It is a habit, repeated quietly until it becomes a way of life. I have seen men with strong arms and weak thoughts. They labor endlessly, but never build anything of worth. And I have seen frail men whose conviction alone could move mountains. The difference was never muscle. It was mentality. A weak mind begins with a single compromise, a small surrender to fear, a single complaint spoken instead of a plan made. It grows in silence, like mildew in a closed room. It feeds on gossip, on excuses, on the soft music of sympathy that keeps a man from standing upright. Fear, gossip, complaint, indecision, envy, these are its 5 seeds. Fear blinds the eyes to opportunity. Gossip drains energy meant for creation. Complaint trains the tongue to confess weakness. Indecision strangles the will before it breathes. And envy poisons gratitude, the very fuel of abundance. You must learn to recognize these symptoms in yourself as a physician detects illness. The weak mind hides behind clever disguises. It calls its fear prudence. It calls its gossip concern. It calls its hesitation waiting for the right time. But I tell you now, no man ever built greatness by waiting. Listen carefully. Weak minds love company. They form quiet circles of comfort, trading their doubts like coins. They find warmth in small fires. Familiar, predictable, safe. But safety is the slow death of the spirit. If you warm your hands too long at those fires, you will forget what it feels like to stand in the light of your own purpose. I ask you plainly, and answer with honesty, have you been warming your hands at small fires? Have you allowed yourself to remain among those who laugh at vision, who complain of the powerful, who speak of fate instead of effort? If you have, do not despair. For the first step to strength is awareness. The moment a man recognizes the weakness of his own thought, he has already begun to escape it. You must become deliberate about your company, not just in who you dine with, but in the thoughts you host. Your mind is a grand house, and every complaint, every fear, every idle word is an uninvited guest. Throw them out. Keep your mind as you would keep your home, clean, ordered, full of purpose. I have watched great men speak little and act much. They do not waste their thought on criticism or gossip. Their silence is not emptiness, it is concentration. They are too busy shaping destiny to discuss the failures of others. Strength is not a gift of fortune. It is the reward of discipline, and discipline begins with the mastery of thought. So from this day, observe yourself. Each time you are tempted to complain, stop and construct a solution. Each time fear whispers, answer it with faith. Each time you envy, bless. Each time indecision rises, move 1 inch forward. For weakness cannot survive motion. It depends on stillness. A stagnant man becomes a victim of his own thoughts. A moving man commands them. Say it now, and say it with conviction. I see clearly. I refuse the contagion of small thinking. From this moment, you step out of the fog, and the air, though colder, will make you stronger. There is a law, invisible yet exact, that governs the rise and fall of every man and every enterprise. I have called it the law of mental contagion. Every thought is energy. Every emotion you carry radiates like heat from a flame. You cannot see it, but you can feel it. And so can everyone around you. Sit among cowards, and you will soon feel their caution soaking into your own bones. Walk beside the bold, and you will find your pulse quicken, your courage stirring, your will demanding action. Thoughts move through the air as surely as sound travels through it. A single fearful thought can infect an entire room. I have witnessed this more times than I can count. In a steel mill in Pittsburgh, I once stood among workers debating a new design. One man, young, talented, and clever, spoke up first. His words were cautious. "It can't be done," he said. He smiled as he said it, as if his doubt were wisdom. Within 10 minutes, every man around him repeated the same phrase, each with growing conviction. The idea, brilliant and promising, died before it was ever tried. And yet, in another plant, I saw the opposite. A foreman, faced with a nearly impossible deadline, gathered his men and said simply, "We will find a way." There was no proof, no plan, no evidence of success, only certainty in his tone. The men believed him because belief is contagious too. Within the week, they had exceeded expectations. The difference between those two scenes was not intelligence or experience. It was atmosphere, the mental climate that spreads through association. Understand this. The mind is a transmitter and a receiver. Whatever you think and feel consistently, you will attract. That is not poetry. It is natural law. A man who speaks doubt invites delay. A man who speaks faith calls opportunity to his door. Your thoughts are not private whispers. They are public signals. They call their own kind. When you dwell on limitation, you draw to you the people and circumstances that confirm it. When you dwell on purpose and possibility, you draw allies, ideas, and resources that match that frequency. I have watched boardrooms freeze into paralysis because one cautious voice said, "Perhaps we should wait." The air itself thickened, eyes lowered, hands folded, progress stopped. But when a single man of faith entered that same room and declared, "Let us decide and begin," the atmosphere shifted instantly. Hope returned. Action followed. This is the unseen architecture of success. The invisible exchange of belief that moves men to build, invent, and lead. So, I offer you this experiment. For the next 3 days, conduct what I call the audit of conversation. Write down every phrase of defeat you hear, whether from others or from your own lips. Phrases such as "I can't," "maybe later," "if only," "that's just how it is." Then, for each one, craft a replacement of certainty. "I will," "now is the time." There is always a way it can be improved. You will be astonished by how much weakness hides in ordinary speech and how powerful you become when you replace it. A man who governs his tongue governs his future. A man who guards his company guards his mind. A man who commands his thought commands his world. Say this quietly, as I have taught others to do. I tune my mind to strength. I broadcast conviction. For the mind is a tower, and its signal never stops. Make sure that what you transmit builds, not breaks. The spirit of those who stand beside you. Your circle is your climate, and the climate in which a man lives, whether of courage or of complaint, determines how high his ideas will rise or how quietly they will die. I have seen men of modest ability rise to greatness simply by breathing a different kind of air, the air of vision, confidence, and movement. And I have seen men of talent wither among cynics, like flowers planted in the shadow of stone. Let me tell you of two men I once knew. The first was a quiet shopkeeper in a small town in Ohio. His store was simple, wooden floors, one counter, and more dust than customers. He had ideas, fine ones, but he shared them only with neighbors who laughed and said, "That won't work here." For years he agreed with them, and so he remained exactly where he was. Then one day, by chance, he met a traveling salesman passing through town. A man of vision and unrelenting confidence. The salesman told him, "Your ideas are fine. You simply breathe the wrong air." Those words struck him deep. The shopkeeper began traveling twice a month to the nearest city, where merchants spoke of plans, not problems, of expansion, not excuses. Within a year, his shop grew. Within 5, he owned 3 more. The only thing he truly changed was his company. Now the second man, a clerk in a busy office, bright and full of promise. He spoke once of starting his own business, of building something of his own, but his companions, all clever talkers and subtle mockers, laughed at his ambition. "Be sensible," they said. "Only fools leave a sure wage." At first, he defended his dream, but day by day their words wore him down. He stopped speaking of his plan. Then he stopped believing in it. The last I heard of him, he was still there, safe, comfortable, and slowly dying inside. You see, proximity is permission. The people you allow near your mind are the ones to whom you give quiet authority. Their habits seep into your own. Their tone becomes the rhythm of your thought. If you spend your hours among the fearful, you will begin to speak their language. If you walk among the decisive, you will begin to act as they do. The law is simple and absolute. You cannot rise higher than the average belief of those around you. So tonight, I invite you to perform a simple, honest exercise. Take a sheet of paper and draw 2 columns. In the first, write the names of those who multiply you, men and women who stir your courage, sharpen your mind, or make you stand taller when you leave their presence. In the second, write the names of those who diminish you, those who drain your energy, who speak of limitation, who smother ambition beneath laughter or sympathy. Now look at the lists, not with sentiment, but with sincerity, and make your decisions. Who shall you grant proximity? Who shall you love from a distance, so they no longer poison your progress? A man's future is not written in the stars, it is written in his associations. If you wish to know your destiny, look not at your dreams, look at your dinner table. You cannot build a palace in the swamp of small minds. Step onto higher ground. And though it may feel lonely at first, soon you will find that those who climb are never truly alone. Say this with me, and mean it with every fiber of your being. I grant proximity only to those who rise. For the air of greatness is thin, but once you breathe it, you will never settle for the fog below. There are 2 kinds of gatherings in this world, and though both are made of men, only one builds empires. The first is the mob, the second is the mastermind. The mob is easy to form. It gathers by accident, over idle talk, shared complaint, or passing amusement. It has no aim, no discipline, no structure. It feeds on emotion and dissolves when the emotion fades. The mob creates noise, but never movement. The mastermind, on the other hand, is deliberate. It is born of intention. It is a sacred alliance between minds bound together by a definite purpose. Its energy does not scatter. It concentrates, and from that concentration comes power beyond what any single man could summon alone. When I first met Andrew Carnegie, he revealed to me that his greatest fortune was not his steel, but his circle, a small, disciplined group of men who met in private every week. They were his council, his master mind. Each possessed a distinct skill: finance, production, organization, innovation. But more important than their abilities was their unity. They met not to gossip, not to speculate, but to decide. Carnegie told me, "Our meetings are temples of decision. 1 hour of harmony among minds of purpose is worth 100 hours of scattered thought." I later observed the same pattern in Henry Ford. His group of engineers was not large, but every man in that circle shared a single aim: to perfect motion, to simplify design, to make the automobile available to every worker in America. When one man doubted, another supplied faith. When one saw a problem, another saw the solution within it. And I understood then that the mastermind is not merely a meeting of men, it is the creation of a third mind greater than the sum of its parts, a shared intelligence that begins to think, plan, and will as one. Most men never experience this. They spend their time among loose circles, trading words without direction, mistaking conversation for creation. They leave these meetings tired, not inspired, confused, not clear. If you wish to know which kind of group you are in, ask yourself one question: when we meet, do we leave with decisions or with distractions? For the mob always talks of what others are doing. The mastermind speaks only of what must be done next. I urge you to form your own council, no matter how small. It may be 3 men or even 2, but let it be governed by purpose, not personality. Choose those who have proven integrity, who act with decisiveness, and who believe in building, not blaming. Meet weekly as the great builders once did. Keep a written agenda. Begin with a single question: what must be decided today? No wandering discussion, no indulgence in doubt. End each meeting with clear action, for talk without decision is the first step toward decay. Remember this: the mob disperses when challenged. The mastermind grows stronger under pressure. One dissolves in fear, the other transforms fear into force. So choose your company carefully, not by charm, but by character, not by talk, but by the weight of their purpose. Say this now and let it take root within you. Joined in purpose, we multiply power, for when 2 or more minds meet in harmony toward a definite aim, a third presence appears, invisible but unmistakable, and through it, men touch the very source of creation itself. Strength is not the absence of courtesy. It is its highest form. A weak man avoids offense. A strong man avoids confusion. In my years observing men of achievement, I discovered a truth few dare to speak aloud. Most failures are not the result of inability, but of intrusion. A man sets his mind to a task, to write, to build, to plan, and before the flame of focus can grow, someone knocks at the door with idle words, small talk, or doubt disguised as advice. The strong man guards against this not with anger, but with clarity. He knows his time is his kingdom, and not every visitor is fit to enter. I recall once visiting a manufacturer in Cleveland whose productivity far exceeded his rivals. When I asked his secret, he pointed to a sign outside his office door that read, "Between 8 and 11, I am not here." "But you are here," I said. He smiled. "To myself, yes. To others, no. Those hours are for creation, not conversation." He called them his guarded hours. Sacred blocks of time during which no gossip, no interruptions, no trivial matters could cross his threshold. His workers learned quickly that the man's strength was not in his machinery, but in his mastery of focus. This is not selfishness. It is structure. The same furnace that forges steel must be kept closed to hold its heat. Leave the door open, and the flame dies. If you wish to do great work, you must learn the art of gracious refusal. The words must be polite, but the decision must be firm. If a neighbor arrives unannounced to share idle news, you might say, "My friend, I value your company, but I am in the midst of a task that requires my full attention. Let us speak when my work is complete." If an acquaintance offers advice that diminishes your faith, you may answer, "I thank you for your concern, but I prefer to build on belief, not on fear." And if a man persists in gossip, the strong simply stand, smile, and say, "I must return to my work." These small acts of firmness may seem cold to the ordinary man, but they are the quiet courtesies of those who respect purpose. Weak minds confuse kindness with surrender. Strong minds understand that true courtesy lies in being honest about one's priorities. Try this practice. Choose 2 guarded hours each day. One in the morning, when your will is sharp, and one in the afternoon, when the world grows noisy. During these hours, no idle conversation, no distraction, no trivial letter or visit may reach you. You will find that, at first, people protest. They are accustomed to your availability, not your authority. But soon, they will come to respect it. And more importantly, so will you. The man who governs his hours governs his destiny. For time is the raw material from which all wealth, all power, all peace are made. Say this now, and let it settle deeply within you. My time is sovereign. My focus is law. When you live by this truth, interruptions lose their power. The world begins to move around your rhythm, not you around its noise. And from that silence, that sacred guarded silence, every great creation begins. The greatest enemy of a man's strength is not found in the company he keeps, nor in the world that resists him. It is found within, silent, familiar, and persuasive. I have met men who spoke eloquently about discipline, vision, and perseverance, yet were prisoners of their own weak habits. They waged war against outer obstacles while entertaining inner ones nightly. Understand this. You cannot conquer the world if you have not conquered your own tendencies towards smallness. The most dangerous weak mind is not the one that mocks you from without. It is the one you host inside your own skull. It speaks softly, and it always sounds reasonable. It says, "You've worked enough for today. You deserve to rest before finishing." It says, "This problem is too large. Perhaps tomorrow you'll have clearer thoughts." It says, "You've failed before. What makes you think this time will be different?" Those are not voices of wisdom. They are whispers of decay. I once kept, for a period of 30 days, what I called my inventory of weakness. Each evening, before closing my notebook, I wrote down every instance of a weak habit I had entertained during the day. Complaints, both spoken and unspoken. Delays, tasks postponed for comfort's sake. Over-explanations, words spoken to justify hesitation. And dramatizations, small failures turned into grand tragedies within the imagination. At first, the list was long and unpleasant to read. But soon, by seeing my own weakness on paper, I robbed it of disguise. What is named can be managed. What is ignored becomes a master. Though I developed a method I have taught to many men since: rename, reframe, replace. When a weak impulse appears, say the urge to complain, do not excuse it. Rename it. Say, "This is not fatigue, it is resistance." Then reframe it. Ask, "What does this moment demand of my character, not my comfort?" Finally, replace it. Take one small, decisive action that contradicts the weakness. If you wish to complain, instead express gratitude. If you wish to delay, act for 5 minutes. If you wish to dramatize failure, record one fact, not your feeling. Weakness feeds on indulgence. Strength grows on contradiction. The act of replacing weak habits with decisive speech and movement trains the mind to obey strength by reflex. And when that happens, you no longer need to fight weakness. It flees at the scent of decision. Remember, every time you choose strength in small things, you condition yourself for greater victories. The man who controls his tongue when tempted to complain will soon control his temper in chaos. The man who finishes one small task despite fatigue will finish a great mission despite fear. Say this with me now. I do not entertain myself with defeat, for that is what most men do. They entertain their own failure, replaying it in thought, feeding it with words, decorating it with excuses, but not you. You are the keeper of a furnace, not a theater, and your mind was not built for rehearsal of defeat. It was built for command. When you close the door to small weakness, strength finds it open from within. Words, my friend, are not mere sounds. They are the architecture of reality. Every word you speak, whether in faith or in fear, is an order issued to your subconscious mind. And the subconscious, loyal servant that it is, obeys without question. I have watched men destroy their own fortunes, not through lack of ability, but through careless speech. They speak of hope where they should speak of decision. They say, if only, when they ought to declare, as soon as A's, and every time they do, they weaken the bridge between thought and achievement. Let me tell you plainly, weak men leak their energy through their words. They drain their willpower not through great failure, but through constant verbal surrender. They discuss difficulties as if those difficulties were permanent. They confess limitations before the battle even begins. They speak of what they cannot do more often than what they will do, and then they wonder why their lives reflect uncertainty. But strong men, those who shape the course of events, understand that speech is law. They speak carefully, as if every sentence were a command to unseen forces. When others say, I hope, they say, I decide. When others sigh, if only things were different, they declare, as soon as I complete this step, the next will appear. Their words leave no room for escape. They sound as if the outcome is inevitable, because for them it is. Early in my life, I kept company with a man named John, a machinist by trade. He was poor in coin, but rich in thought. I once asked him how he maintained such composure amid hardship. He said, I speak only of what I wish multiplied. If I do not want more of it, I do not give it the dignity of my words. That sentence struck me with such force that I wrote it down and have quoted it ever since. For you cannot plant weeds with your tongue and expect roses in your life. Your words are seeds. Each one carries a vibration that summons its own kind. Speak of fatigue, and more fatigue will find you. Speak of strength, and new vigor will rise in your chest. So I give you a practice, one that has purified many minds of weakness. For 7 days, undertake what I call the speech fast. For 7 days, speak no complaint, no gossip, no insult toward yourself or others. At first, you will fail, perhaps within the first hour, but when you do, stop, breathe, and correct yourself aloud. Replace the weak phrase with one of command. Instead of this is impossible, say, this will demand my best and I will give it. Instead of I can't seem to get ahead, say I am learning to advance with precision. Each correction will rewire your thinking and reinforce your authority over your own mind. After 7 days, you will notice something remarkable. Your voice will feel stronger, not in volume, but in certainty. People will listen differently, for they will feel that your words carry weight, and you will begin to notice that circumstances seem to arrange themselves in the direction of your speech. This is not chance. It is law. For words are contracts between you and destiny. They are binding agreements written in the unseen fabric of thought. When you speak decisively, you set the machinery of the universe in motion. Say this with me now, and say it with the authority of one who commands his world. My words are contracts with destiny. From this day forward, speak not as a beggar requesting luck, but as a builder issuing blueprints. Let your every sentence be a stone placed toward the fortress of your future, and soon your outer world will take the exact shape of your inner speech. The difference between a weak man and a strong one is measured in seconds, not years. A weak man hesitates. A strong man decides. Decision is the point where thought becomes reality. It is the bridge between desire and destiny. Yet most men spend their lives standing before that bridge, studying its structure, questioning its safety, waiting for a sign that it is safe to cross. The strong man, meanwhile, steps forward, and only then discovers that the bridge was built to bear the weight of his movement. You see, weak minds postpone. They stretch the distance between thought and motion. They believe that more information will one day dissolve their uncertainty. But strong minds know that clarity does not precede decision. It follows it. I once asked Andrew Carnegie what he considered the rarest quality among men. He answered at once, the power of quick, sound decision. He told me that he had known hundreds of clever men who could analyze, debate, and delay endlessly, yet he built his empire only with those who could decide and act. And when I asked how he knew whom to trust, he said, I ask them a question and observe how quickly they choose. The man who cannot decide today will not act tomorrow. That conversation stayed with me all my life. You may recall the story of Edwin C. Barnes, the young man who desired to become a partner of Thomas Edison. Barnes had no money, no connections, and no clear plan, but he had a decision. He did not say, I hope to work for Edison someday. He said, I will go to Edison and make myself his partner. It was not logic that moved him, it was decision. He acted, boarded a freight train, and arrived at Edison's office with nothing but faith and determination. Years later, that same faith and decision made him rich. When Edison chose him as his associate in marketing the Edison dictating machine, had Barnes waited for a better time, he would have remained a clerk all his life. There is a lesson here. One I have proven through the experience of hundreds of men. Motion precedes understanding. You do not act because you know because you act. So I offer you a tool, simple yet powerful. I call it the 5-second consent. Whenever a right idea arises, a step, a call, a letter, a task, you have 5 seconds to give consent before your weaker self begins to interfere. If within 5 seconds you do not move, even by 1 small inch, hesitation will recruit doubt, and doubt will seize command. So when you feel the impulse toward progress, do not wait. Move at once. Write 1 sentence. Make 1 call. Take 1 step. Do something, anything, that anchors decision in motion. The man who delays says, I will act when I am certain. The man who succeeds says, I will act so that I become certain. I once counseled a young manufacturer who could not seem to grow his small operation. Each day he would plan improvements but never commit to them, always waiting for the perfect moment. I instructed him to perform 1 bold step every day, something that scared him but advanced his purpose. Within months, he doubled his output and attracted investors simply because the atmosphere of his factory changed. His men began to move faster, think clearer, and follow his lead, for decision is contagious. When a man decides boldly, he gives silent permission for others to rise with him. Now I say to you, do not wait for the world to clear a path before you. Step forward, and the path will appear beneath your feet. Say these words with conviction and let them engrave themselves into your inner command. I move first, clarity follows. That is the creed of every builder, every creator, every leader who refuses to drift. Decide swiftly. Move immediately. Adjust later. For the mind that acts without hesitation becomes the mind that no longer fears. And once you no longer fear, you are free. Money, my friend, is not loyal to intelligence alone. It is loyal to character. It follows men whose word is as firm as iron, whose actions match their promises, and whose company strengthens rather than weakens their resolve. I have sat across tables with financiers, industrialists, and inventors, men who moved entire markets with a single decision. And in all my years of study, I found that the most trusted among them shared 1 quality above all others, the quality of dependability. Capital, you see, is timid. It avoids confusion. It flees uncertainty. But when it meets a man whose mind is steady and whose word carries the weight of truth, it rushes toward him like iron filings to a magnet. Years ago, I met an investor whose success fascinated me. He funded new ventures every year, yet seldom lost. I asked him once, what do you look for when you choose a man to back? He smiled slightly and said, I ask only 1 question. Who sits at your table? He explained that he could tell the measure of a man not by his speech, not even by his business plan, but by the company he keeps. Character, he said, is reflected by companionship. A man who dines with gossipers will soon betray a confidence. A man who surrounds himself with cowards will retreat when the pressure comes. But the man who keeps counsel with disciplined, forward-looking minds, that man will guard both my money and his own. Those words stayed with me, and I later proved them true. No man rises far alone, and no man falls without help. If your circle is composed of men who drift, you will drift. If it is built of men who decide, build, and persevere, you will rise without needing to understand why. Because character is magnetic, and the field it generates either attracts opportunity or repels it. You may think opportunity depends on luck, timing, or connections. It does not. Opportunity is simply trust looking for a home, and trust settles only where a man has shown that his word does not tremble under pressure. So I will give you a practice that will refine your reputation faster than any public speech or promise could. Keep what I call a reputation ledger. Each evening, record 2 things. First, the promises you made that day, large or small. Second, whether you fulfilled them. Do this faithfully for 30 days, and you will discover something powerful. You will begin to speak fewer promises, but keep them all. And that is how men of wealth are recognized. Not by abundance of words, but by precision of action. I recall a young entrepreneur who adopted this very method. He began each morning reviewing his ledger, asking, "Whose trust have I earned, and whose trust have I yet to repay?" Within a year, his small business grew threefold, not because he found new investors, but because his reputation began to circulate. Men spoke of him as one whose handshake was as binding as a contract. And when he finally sought capital, he found it waiting for him. There is a spiritual law at work here. Money keeps faith with those who keep faith with themselves. If you break your word lightly, you will notice that others begin to do the same. If you keep it firmly, even when inconvenient, you will see that fortune begins to mirror your integrity. You need not announce your virtue. You need only live it. Men of means will feel it before you speak it. Now say this with me, not as a wish, but as a command to your deeper self. I keep my word, money keeps mine. Let that truth settle into your bones. Your character is your capital, and your integrity is its compound interest. Guard them well, and you will never need to chase opportunity, for opportunity will come looking for you. Now, my friend, I will take you through a journey of the mind, not of imagination, but of remembrance. Close your eyes and listen as I guide you inward to a place where truth stands before you, silent and unflinching. You are walking through a long corridor of mirrors. The air is still. The light is warm and golden, as though the very walls breathe calm authority. Each mirror you pass reflects not merely your image, but the company you have kept, the minds you have allowed near your own. On your left, you see the faces of those who lifted you, men and women of courage, of action, of steady purpose. When you look into those mirrors, your chest feels stronger, your posture taller. Their reflection fills you with dignity. On your right, you see another set of mirrors. These are dim, clouded with the breath of weak thinking, the chronic complainers, the fearful advisors, the small talkers, who drained your fire under the guise of friendship. Each of these mirrors feels heavy, cold, dull. Now, as you stand in the center of this hall, I ask you to move deliberately. Walk toward the mirror that reflects strength, the one that reminds you of the best within you. Place your hand upon it. Feel the warmth that rises through your palm. Say within yourself, "You may remain." Now, turn to the dim mirrors, those that show weakness, gossip, indecision. Do not hate them. Do not curse them. Simply touch the surface lightly and whisper, "I release you." And as you do, watch how the reflection fades, the glass turning clear once more, empty and peaceful. The energy that once bound you to small thinking dissolves. You continue forward. The corridor narrows until it opens into a vast circular chamber, the chamber of decision. The floor is made of polished stone. In its center, a single pedestal stands carved with 7 symbols of strength. Upon it rests a small, shining seal, the seal of strong association. Approach it slowly. You will feel a quiet knowing rise within you, the recognition that you are no longer defined by the company of weakness. You have chosen who walks beside you and who walks no longer. When you reach the pedestal, lift the seal. It is not heavy, yet it carries weight. Place it upon your chest, over your heart. It warms instantly, a radiant heat that spreads through your body like courage awakening. As the warmth fills you, repeat this truth after me, not softly, but with calm certainty. I am a man in whose company courage grows. Again, I am a man in whose company courage grows. Feel what those words mean. They are not vanity. They are law. For from this moment onward, the people who meet you will sense it. They will feel steadier in your presence, clearer in your company, and you, in turn, will find that your thoughts attract the like-minded, the purposeful, the brave. The chamber begins to brighten. The walls shimmer as though approving your choice. The mirrors you left behind no longer bind you. You have purified your atmosphere. Now turn and walk toward the exit. Each step feels lighter, freer, more certain. Your gait no longer hesitates. It commands. You are no longer the man who tolerated small fires. You are the man who carries the flame. When you reach the end of the corridor, pause for a moment. Take a breath. Deep, steady, unhurried, and let this understanding take root. You have not lost companions. You have gained clarity. You have not rejected anyone. You have accepted your purpose. The man who values strength must choose his circle as a blacksmith chooses his steel. Only the purest metals can bear the heat. Now, return to waking awareness. Carry this certainty with you into your day and into your night. For from this moment forward, you are no longer the reflection of those around you. You are the mirror in which others find their courage. Now that you have sealed your will within strength, life will not leave you untested. Understand this. Every man who decides to rise must prove his decision not in speech, but in endurance. The world will not ask, "What have you learned?" It will ask, "Can you stand?" There are 7 tests through which every builder of destiny must pass. Each one will visit you in its own time, not to destroy you, but to confirm what you have become. The first test, solitude. There will come a time when the voices around you fade, and you will walk alone. Men of weak mind fear this silence. They crave noise to drown their uncertainty. But the strong man welcomes solitude, for it is there that he hears his own command clearly. When solitude arrives, speak this sentence: "I am not alone. I am in counsel with my own spirit," and then take this action. Continue your work as though the world were watching. For solitude is not emptiness, it is concentration. The second test, criticism. When you begin to build, when your ideas take form and your ambition becomes visible, the critics will appear. They are not your enemies. They are proof that you have moved beyond the ordinary. Do not answer them in words. Let your results reply for you. Say quietly to yourself, "Their judgment cannot touch what is built from purpose," and take this action. Refine your plan, not your anger. Criticism refines the diamond only. When met with calm flame, the third test, delay. Nothing of permanence comes swiftly. Between the planting and the harvest lies a long, silent season. This is where most men falter. They think silence means failure. It does not. Delay is the universe measuring your capacity to endure reward. When it feels as though nothing is moving, say, "The roots are working where eyes cannot see," and take this action. Stay consistent with your routine. 1 hour, 1 step, 1 decision. Because persistence is faith made visible. The fourth test, the temptation to gossip. Few poisons are as subtle as idle speech. It feels harmless, yet it corrodes the mind from within. When the urge to discuss others arises, stop and remember. Every word shapes your own vibration. A strong man builds his fortune in silence and guards the reputation of others as he would his own. Say to yourself, "I rise by silence. I weaken by idle talk," and act immediately. Withdraw your tongue from pettiness and turn your mind to purpose. For what you discuss, you become. The fifth test, praise. Yes, even praise must be mastered. For too many men stop climbing when the applause begins. They mistake approval for arrival, but the strong man treats praise as wind, useful for movement, but never a destination. Say quietly, "Gratitude without vanity, progress without pause." And take this action after every victory. Begin a new plan before the world finishes clapping. Let your next act of creation be your only response to praise. The sixth test, uncertainty. The path of progress is not lit from end to end. It reveals itself step by step. The weak mind demands guarantees. The strong mind makes its own. When doubt surrounds you, when the way ahead is hidden, say, "I move first," and the path appears beneath me. Then act, not in haste, but in faith. Even a single inch forward breaks the spell of confusion. The seventh test, loss. At some point, you will lose something or someone precious: money, opportunity, companionship, even peace. Do not mistake this for punishment. Loss is the furnace through which your soul is strengthened. What departs clears the ground for what is greater. When loss comes, say, "I am not diminished, I am refined." Then take this action, write down what remains, and build again. The man who can continue after loss has discovered true power. Each of these tests will ask the same silent question: will you remain the man you decided to be? And each time you will answer not with words, but with composure. Remember this always. Strength is not built in comfort. It is built in the space between adversity and your reaction to it. Now repeat after me slowly, with the conviction of one who knows that the trials ahead are not curses, but confirmations. In every test I practice strength. Say it again. In every test I practice strength. For the man who practices strength does not wait for life to ease. He sharpens himself with every challenge, and in doing so becomes unbreakable. Let me share with you a few stories, not of legends or kings, but of ordinary men and women who discovered the quiet power that lies in separating from weak minds and standing firmly in strength. These are lives transformed not by chance, but by the deliberate practice of everything I have spoken to you tonight. The first is Elena, a humble bookbinder from the outskirts of the city. For years, she worked among companions who mocked her ambition. When she spoke of expanding her workshop, they laughed. When she mentioned improving her craft, they rolled their eyes and said, "You should be grateful to have work at all." Each day, she would return home carrying not only the weight of her tools, but also the invisible heaviness of small minds whispering around her, until one evening, something within her snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. She remembered my words, "Proximity is permission," and she asked herself, "Why have I given permission to those who do not rise?" The next morning, she made a decision. She left that workshop and joined a small circle of craftsmen who met weekly to exchange ideas, teach one another, and hold each other to higher standards. At first, she felt out of place. Their speech was sharper, their expectations stricter, but within months, she began to rise to meet them. Within a year, her binding improved, her reputation grew, and her peace returned. She later told me, "It was not my hands that changed, it was my atmosphere." And I said to her, "Yes, my dear, for no seed flourishes in the shade of weeds." Her income doubled, but that was not her true reward. Her true gain was this: she began to believe again that she was worthy of mastery. The second story is of Jasper, a young engineer whose mind was sharp but whose courage faltered. He worked in a factory where innovation was mocked as foolish risk. When he shared new designs, his colleagues dismissed them. He began to shrink his ideas to fit the size of their approval. When I met him, he was restless and tired. I asked, "How often do you move on your ideas before doubt enters?" He said, "Rarely." And so I taught him what I called the daily bold step. Every morning before work, he was to choose one small act that frightened him: presenting a proposal, correcting an inefficiency, speaking truth to a superior, and do it immediately. He was not to wait for courage to come, but to act first. For courage is born in motion, not in waiting. At first, his voice trembled when he spoke up, but within weeks, his ideas began to produce results. Machines ran smoother, costs fell, and soon his superiors noticed what his peers had ignored. He was promoted, not for genius, but for initiative. He later wrote to me, "It was not the bold step that changed my fate, but the habit of taking it." And I told him, "Exactly. You became the kind of man who moves before fear finds its footing." The third is Mina, a widow who ran a small trade in fabrics and household goods. After her husband's passing, she surrounded herself with sympathizers, well-meaning but full of complaint and fear. Each visit began with pity and ended in gossip. Her spirit, once lively, grew dull. I met her during one of my lectures and saw the fatigue in her eyes. When I spoke of guarded hours, periods of the day where one allows no weak voice to enter, she approached me afterward. She said, "Mr. Hill, I do not think I could endure such silence." I replied, "Madam, silence is not your enemy, it is your restorer." She began the practice the very next day. For 2 hours each morning, she closed her doors, kept her ledger, and replaced complaint with gratitude. She wrote daily 3 lines in her book: what she had, what she gave, and what she desired to build next. At first, her friends teased her. They said she had grown proud, but within months, her trade began to flourish again. Customers returned, orders increased. She had become a calm presence in her own shop, and people are drawn to calmness as surely as they are drawn to light. One afternoon, she told me, "My husband used to handle all the business. I thought I had lost that strength with him. Now I see it was mine all along." And I said to her, "Indeed, strength never leaves you. It only waits for your invitation." Each of these souls, Elena, Jasper, and Mina, found transformation not through miracles, but through mental association and decisive thought. They changed the company they kept. Both within and without, they separated from the weak minds that had dulled their purpose and joined, instead, with the ideas and people that sharpened their conviction. Every gain they achieved, wealth, peace, position, can be traced to one single turning point, the moment they refuse to warm their hands at small fires. Now, as you listen, I invite you to see yourself among them, for their stories are not extraordinary. They are mirrors of what awaits every man or woman who dares to choose strength over sympathy, purpose over pity, decision over drift. Say this with me, quietly, but with faith. Their victory is my pattern. I too shall rise through the company of strength. For what they built was not luck, it was law. And that law is waiting for you to act upon it. Before the day ends, when the noise of the world begins to fade and your thoughts grow still, there is a sacred hour that most men waste, the hour before sleep. But I tell you now, it is in this hour that destiny is built. For it is when your conscious mind grows quiet that your subconscious begins to obey. This is what I call the night command, the final order you give to your inner world before it takes over the night watch. You will not drift into sleep as a beggar of dreams, but as a commander issuing clear instruction to his most faithful servant, the deeper mind. Each night, before you close your eyes, follow this routine faithfully. Do not treat it as ritual alone, but as ceremony. A moment in which you pass the torch from thought to belief, from belief to reality. First, read your definite chief aim aloud. Do not whisper it timidly. Speak it as one who knows the ground beneath his feet. Let every word carry the certainty of completion. You are not asking, you are declaring. Your aim is your law, and your subconscious is the executor of that law. As you read, see it vividly before you, the result complete, the work accomplished, the satisfaction felt. Hold that image until it feels less like hope and more like memory. Second, speak 3 gratitudes for strong influences that guided your day. You might say, I am grateful for the man who spoke truth when comfort was easier. I am grateful for the courage that kept me moving. I am grateful for the unseen hand that guarded my faith. Do not rush this step. Gratitude is the magnet that aligns your mind with strength. It draws more of what you honor. By acknowledging power in others, you reinforce it within yourself. Third, issue one clear command to the subconscious. Say it slowly, with deliberate tone. Reveal tomorrow's bold step and the man to execute it with me. You are not merely asking for guidance. You are programming your deeper self to prepare the next day's movement and to attract the right companion in its execution. The mind, when commanded firmly, arranges circumstances with uncanny precision. You will awaken with a sudden idea, a name, or an impulse to act. And when that moment comes, obey it immediately. That is your instruction fulfilled. When the command has been given, remain silent for a moment. Feel the quiet power of completion. You have spoken as the architect of your world, not its prisoner. Now affirm this final truth with me, not as poetry, but as decree. I am the source. I am decisive. I rise at dawn. Again with deeper conviction. I am the source. I am decisive. I rise at dawn. Let that sentence echo through you until it feels engraved upon your soul. You are reminding the subconscious of its master, and that master is you. Then, and only then, allow yourself to drift into sleep, not as one escaping the day, but as one handing the night a purpose. Your mind will work faithfully on your behalf, summoning strength, sharpening clarity, preparing encounters, and shaping opportunity. You will awaken not by habit, but by instruction fulfilled. And when morning comes, you will not groan at the light. You will rise to meet it as one who already knows his direction. That, my friend, is how the strong man ends his day, with order, with gratitude, and with command. There are times in a man's life when he must step away from the noise of the world, not in retreat, but in renewal. When the air around him has grown too thick with the opinions of others, when his thoughts no longer belong entirely to him, he must choose to cleanse his atmosphere and reclaim command over his own mind. I call this the 40-day separation protocol, a deliberate season of self-mastery. It is not for the curious, but for the committed. It is a pact between you and your higher self, a covenant of silence, structure, and strength. For 40 days, not one less, you will live as a man in training for dominion. These 40 days will not be a test of deprivation, but of direction. Each rule is a boundary meant not to restrict you, but to restore you. Let me now give you the structure. First, guarded hours. Choose 2 sacred blocks of time each day. One in the morning, one in the evening, when no weak influence is allowed to enter, no idle conversation, no interruptions, no wandering thought. These hours belong solely to your purpose. Use them for study, planning, creation, or quiet reflection. Let the world learn that your time is sovereign. Second, the speech fast. For 40 days you will refrain from complaint, gossip, and self-deprecating words. You will speak only that which builds or clarifies. This is no small vow, for most men waste their power through idle talk. But when you master your tongue, you master your destiny. Each time you are tempted to utter weakness, pause, breathe, and replace it with strength. Say to yourself, my words are orders. I will not command defeat. Third, the daily bold step. Every day, take one decisive action that stretches your courage. Do not wait for the mood to align. Act, and the mood will follow. It may be a letter written, a conversation faced, a plan advanced, or a truth spoken. Each bold step is a small strike of the hammer that forges your confidence. Record it nightly in your ledger. Fourth, the weekly mastermind. Once each week, meet with one or more men or women of strength, those who think clearly and act deliberately. Speak only of ideas, plans, and definite aims. This is your circle of clarity, your mental forge. Guard its membership with care, for one weak mind within can poison the entire alliance. Remember always, a mastermind multiplies your power. A careless circle dissolves it. Fifth, the reputation ledger. Each night, write down every promise you made that day, and mark whether you kept it. Be honest, brutally so, for character is not what you intend, but what you fulfill. As the days pass, you will see a pattern, and where you find inconsistency, there lies the leak in your strength. Seal it. Sixth, the evening command. Before sleep, repeat your night ritual. Read your chief aim, speak your gratitude, and issue your command to the subconscious. Reveal tomorrow's bold step and the ally to achieve it. Let this practice be your closing act each day, the seal upon your discipline. Seventh, the Sunday reflection. Each week, on the seventh day, withdraw from activity and review your progress. Study your ledger, your actions, and your speech. Note where strength prevailed and where it faltered. Do not condemn yourself, correct yourself. Adjust the plan and begin again on Monday with sharper intention. These 7 disciplines will act as a purification of the mind. You will find within the first 10 days a stillness beginning to rise inside you, a calm not born of rest, but of order. By the 20th day, your speech will sharpen, your decisions will quicken, and you will feel your energy consolidating. By the 40th, others will notice it, not by your words, but by the quiet gravity you carry. You will discover that strength, once practiced, ceases to be effort. It becomes your nature. What once required discipline will become instinct. And that, my friend, is the mark of true mastery. Now say this aloud, slowly, with certainty. For 40 days I practice strength until strength becomes natural. Again, with deeper conviction. For 40 days I practice strength until strength becomes natural. For those who endure these 40 days with sincerity, something profound occurs. The weak mind begins to dissolve and a new identity takes its place, decisive, calm, and unwavering. You will not need to announce your transformation. The world will feel it in your presence. And from that point onward, you will never again mistake noise for power, nor weakness for kindness, nor hesitation for humility. You will have built within yourself the atmosphere of a leader. Let me tell you something that only a few men ever come to realize in their lifetime. You are not a guest of circumstance. You are the architect of atmosphere. The weak man believes he must adapt to his surroundings, that his thoughts, his moods, and his destiny depend upon the behavior of others or the conditions of the day. But the strong man knows better. He understands that atmosphere is not found. It is forged. It begins within him and extends outward, shaping the world to the pattern of his conviction. I have stood in rooms where hope seemed dead, offices filled with worry, factories filled with fatigue, homes filled with complaint, and yet I have seen a single man enter those rooms with calm determination, and the entire temperature of the place changed. The air itself seemed to shift. You could feel it, the heaviness lifting, the confusion settling into focus. It was as though his presence declared, "Order begins here." That, my friend, is what it means to become the architect of atmosphere, not by force, but by alignment, not by demand, but by dominion. Every thought you allow, every word you speak, every action you take, these are the materials of construction. With them, you are either building a sanctuary for strength or a shelter for fear. The choice is made moment by moment, breath by breath. You must understand energy seeks its own level. When you live among small minds, their gravity will try to pull you downward, but do not fight them directly. To fight them is to acknowledge them as equals. Instead, rise. Elevate your standard until their noise can no longer reach your ears. Do not say, I avoid weak minds. Say instead, I outgrow their invitation. For to outgrow something is to transcend it quietly, without resentment, without announcement. You simply become too strong, too clear, too focused to dwell where small thinking survives. That is the essence of mastery. Not rebellion, but evolution. You no longer resist the old world, you replace it by standing firmly in the new. I once told a young man who struggled with doubt, do not seek approval from those who have never built anything. Their praise is cheap, because their courage is small. And when he asked, then where should I stand, Mr. Hill? I said, stand where the air is thin, and breathe until it becomes your normal. For the heights of purpose are not crowded. Most men prefer the comfort of the valley, where excuses grow in abundance. But up here in the thin air of discipline and faith, your lungs will burn at first, yet each breath will make you stronger. And soon, what once felt difficult will feel natural. That is the transformation of the strong mind. So if today you feel the weight of your environment, if the voices around you drain your courage or blur your vision, remember this truth. You were never meant to adapt to weakness. You were meant to elevate it by example. And when others see your calm, your decisiveness, your discipline, they too will begin to breathe differently in your presence. That is the quiet influence of a man who commands his own atmosphere. He does not persuade, he radiates. He does not beg for loyalty, he inspires it. He does not chase opportunity, he attracts it by the law of vibration and congruence. Now say this with me, slowly, firmly, as though etching it into stone. I decide, I move, I guard, I grow. Again with deeper conviction. I decide, I move, I guard, I grow. Feel the truth of those words. Decision is your anchor. Movement is your proof. Boundaries are your shield. Growth is your reward. You are no longer a passenger on the current of circumstance. You are the river's source. You determine its direction, its strength, its destination. And when you master this truth, when your inner atmosphere becomes one of calm certainty and deliberate will, the outer world will reflect it without fail. For life, my friend, is not happening to you. It is responding through you. And you, yes, you are its architect. Now that we have walked this path together, through the fog of weak minds and into the clear air of strength, there remains one final task. For knowledge, unacted upon, is the same as ignorance. Wisdom is not proven in words, but in movement. So tonight, before this hour closes, I ask that you take immediate action. Not tomorrow, not when the mood feels right. Now, take up your notebook, or if you have none, take up the back of a letter, the margin of a book, the inside of your hand if you must, and write these 4 sentences of command. The first, one boundary I shall set today. What will you no longer permit to drain your energy, distract your mind, or dilute your faith? It might be a person, a conversation, a habit, or a routine. Name it. Draw the line. For every man who masters himself must first declare what is sacred in his time. The second, one strong ally I shall invite. Think of one person who speaks with integrity, who acts with courage, who builds rather than complains. Invite that person into your circle, not merely for company, but for mutual elevation. The strong recognize each other in silence. Seek not the crowd's approval. Seek the companion who challenges you to rise. The third, one weak influence I shall release. Write it plainly. No sentiment, no guilt. Weak influences are not always evil. Often they are simply unguarded. But if they cause your fire to dim, you must step away, not in anger, but in clarity. You cannot walk the mountain path while carrying the furniture of the valley. And the fourth, one bold step I shall execute now. Choose it, commit to it, and act before doubt regains its footing. Do not plan to act. Act, for boldness, once practiced, becomes contagious to your own spirit. Each act of courage enlarges the next. These 4 lines, a boundary, an ally, a release, and a bold step, will serve as your foundation. Simple, but not small. I have seen entire lives altered by such immediate resolve. When you have written them, read this vow aloud. From this day, the company I keep is the future I create. Say it slowly, with conviction. You are no longer speaking as a man who reacts to the world. You are speaking as a man who shapes it. The men and women who shall walk beside you from this day forth will be those who respect effort, honor, purpose, and speak truth. You will attract them not by search, but by vibration. For strength calls to strength as surely as the mountain calls to the climber. And now I leave you with this final reminder, not as a farewell, but as a charge to carry in your heart wherever you go. Stay away from weak minds, not in anger, but in honor, and watch strength hurry to your side, for life rewards the man who walks with clarity. The world bows to the one who leads himself first. And from this moment forward, may every breath, every word, and every act you perform bear the quiet authority of a man who knows that he is no longer shaped by weakness, but by will.